begin in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and it was a great opening weekend for the Colorado College Tigers, picking up a pair of wins, defeating Blackburn College 81-64, and then George Fox University 98-90 at the Colorado College Tip-Off Invitational. Chris Lesnansky was fantastic, had 18 points, shooting 8 of 11 from the floor in the win over Blackburn, and he followed that up with a 23-point performance to go with 9 rebounds and 5 assists in the win over George Fox. For his performance, he was named MVP of the two-day event. Meanwhile, the Shriner Mountaineers got new head coach Connor Kirkendall off to a great start with a pair of wins in the Great Northwest. They defeated Pacific Lutheran 65-58 thanks to Wes Miller with 16 points on the evening. They would then come back and defeat Willamette on the road 69-57 as the Mountaineers were in complete control of that game, had a lead as high as 12 during that game throughout the first half, and were able to hold off any sort of rally from Willamette as the Shriner starts the year 2-0. Meanwhile, the University of Dallas was also on the West Coast, and they started their year 2-0. They began by defeating the University of California at Santa Cruz 64-57. Aaron Wyatt and Tom Kaiser each had 15 points in the game. They would then follow that up with a victory in overtime over the Redlands 75-73. The Crusaders seemed in control, had a 12-point lead, but the Bulldogs rallied back and would force overtime. However, the Dallas Crusaders took control in overtime and picked up the victory. 4 players for the Dallas put up double-digit numbers as Blackburn had 16 points, and Wyatt marked his first double-double of the season with 15 points and 12 rebounds. As we continue to move along, Centenary began its season 1-1 on their West Coast trip, or Great Northwest trip, I should say, in Portland, Oregon. The Gents first faced Lewis and Clark. They fell 71-69 at the buzzer, despite a career-high 31-point performance from Kendall DeMouchette. They would come back and defeat Linfield College in their second game later in the weekend, 70-66. Brooks Posset led the way with 16 points, while James Sapp added 12 points. DeMouchette also was in the scoring column with 10. Centenary starts their season 1-1. Texas Lutheran had a tough contest as they welcomed in the Jimmy Smith era with a tough loss to the number 22 team in the nation, the Texas Dallas Comets. On the road, the Bulldogs were able to keep it close, but just couldn't quite overcome some miscues as the Comets came away with the victory. Jordan Cormetis led the way with 20 points and was also 10 of 11 from the free throw line. Finally, the Trinity University Tigers had a tough start to their season, dropping their first matchup 100-74 to Hardin-Simmons. The Tigers shot right around 50%, so they shot okay, but they just could not slow down the Cowboy offense. Matt Selling led 3 Tigers in double-figure scoring, shooting 5 of 8 from the field and 3 of 5 from behind the arc for 14 points. It's early. Very early for that matter, but let's check out the SCAC men's basketball standings after one weekend of play. A 3-way tie for first place with the University of Dallas, Colorado College, and Shriner all sitting at 2-0 so far in the season. Centenary is right behind them at 1-1. Austin College and Southwestern has yet to play. They are still at 0-0. And Trinity and Texas Lutheran did play some weekday games yesterday evening and Monday evening as well, and they sit at 0-2 so far on the season. Finally, a quick look at this week's SCAC Men's Basketball Player of the Week. It is Chris Lesnansky, a senior forward from Denver, Colorado, of the Colorado College Tigers, averaging 20.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 3.5 assists to be named MVP of the 2014 Colorado College Tip-Off Invitational and lead the Tigers to a 2-0 start. Check out CACsports.com for an interview with Chris, as well as more information about his performance this past weekend. We move to the women's side, and we will begin with the Texas Lutheran Bulldogs, the defending SCAC champions. They battled back from a 12-point deficit in the second half against UT Dallas in their opener on the road, and even took the lead with a minute to play, but the Bulldogs could not hold on, falling 58-55 against the Comets. Kristen Lai was huge in the second half comeback, scoring 12 of her game-high 19 points in the second half. Austin College opened their season taking on Mary Hardin Baylor in their home gym in Sherman. Aaron Riley, Christina Keim, and Brianna Harvey combined for 70 points, and the Roos scored 54 second-half points and shooting a high percentage in the process. However, they were facing a big halftime deficit and could not quite get back, falling 97-85. Riley and Keim each had 25 points in their outing, while Harvey added 20 points, career high for her at that time. Moving along, we'll check on the Colorado College Tigers. They started the year 0-2 with losses to Hardin Simmons and St. Lawrence. Daniel Davis poured in a career-high 31 points against the Cowgirls, but it was not enough as they fell 75-67. Against St. Lawrence, Courtney Tyus led the way with 24 points and 4 steals, but again, wasn't enough to get the victory. Trinity University was in the Great Northwest. They took on George Fox in Linfield, and it was a tough day against the Bruins. All-American Anisha Richardson was the only player to score in double figures, scoring 12 as the Bruins rolled to a victory against the Wildcats. Monica Holguin led Trinity with 16 points off the bench, but again, it was not enough as they would fall against Linfield. Schreiner University had a pair of close games in the Great Northwest over in Portland, Oregon, against Lewis and Clark and Willamette. Against Lewis and Clark, a 51-44 loss. Kelsey Jackson led the way with 13 points and 8 rebounds, while Chris Jones added 11 points. In a 57-53 loss to Willamette, Jackson again led the way with 17 points and 7 rebounds. Great performance from her, but Schreiner just couldn't quite get over the hump and pick up their first win of the season. Finally, the Centenary Ladies opened their season against the number 13 team in the nation, the University of Texas at Tyler, and it was a tough day for the ladies, falling 107-50. Brianna Edwards and Rebecca Thompson led the ladies with 11 points. Let's take a look at the SCAC women's basketball standings after 1 weekend of play. Sitting in first place with a pair of 1-1 records is Austin College and Texas Lutheran. Followed by that is Dallas, who has yet to play a game yet. They're at 0-0. They will open up this weekend. Southwestern opened up on Tuesday night. They took on Hardin Simmons and fell to them. They are 0-1 so far in the season in fourth. There is a tie for fifth place with Trinity, Centenary, and Colorado College, all at 0-2 so far this season. And finally, sitting so far in 8th place, but very early on the season, is Schreiner at 0-3. As we take a look at the SCAC Women's Basketball Player of the Week, it is Aaron Riley, graduate student who plays forward from Battle Creek, Michigan, for the Austin College Kangaroos. Aaron had a fantastic weekend for the Roos, scoring 25 points, adding 7 rebounds and 5 assists while hitting 6 3-pointers in the process in the loss to Mary Hardin Baylor. Check out SCACsports.com for an interview with Aaron, as well as more information about her performance this past weekend.
The Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, a conference of good sports.